They'll be able to hear when they're quiet.
We're good? Oh, so if everybody be quiet, they could hear me. Welcome, everybody. This is Hopkinton Rotary's Candidates Forum. As I'm sure most of you know, we hold this forum when there are multiple candidates running for our local races. So thanks to the candidates. So pleased to see you all. And of course, we're on Zoom. Apologies to two of our candidates who couldn't make it. It is the last day of school vacation week, so we had anticipated that, but my apologies. So each candidate has 2 minutes. We're going to have the candidates for school board, because there's 2 candidates for 1 position. Then we have 3 candidates for the 2 positions on select board, and we're going to round out the evening or the late afternoon. We hope not to be here into the evening. We're going to round out the late afternoon with the budget committee candidates. So we have Suzanne Carmichael on Zoom, and we have Richard Sala, I believe, in the audience. You get to come on up front. We've asked each candidate to limit their opening statement to 2 minutes. And then we have a series of questions that have been submitted from folks in the community. Overall, we're going to try to give each candidate about 10 minutes of speaking time, and you can sort of do the math, 20 minutes for school board, 30 minutes for select board if we need it, and then the rest of the evening and night for the budget committee. So Suzanne, I did not warn you about this, but we could go in alphabetical order and you could give your opening statement first if you would like.
That's fine. Thank you.
And we can hear you nicely.
Okay. Hi, Richard. I apologize that I'm not there in person. We had an opportunity to go see our kiddo play some preseason softball down in Florida. And many people know who she is. She's way more well-known than I am. So we took that opportunity. We have been in Hopkinton for approximately 20 years. I did grow up in Concord, but spent a lot of time in Kentucky, especially around fair time. My parents used to run the Sugar Shack at the fair, and my brother was in the Demo Derby every year that I can remember. He even won once. But I'm running for school board basically because I believe that I can help. I have experience in education over 25 years. I also have some experience in steering a large nonprofit organization board. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity to use my skills to help guide Hopkinton schools to a more sustainable future. I also have some deep roots in Hopkinton. We have lots of family. My grandmother worked at Maple Street School for about 2 decades back in the 50s and 60s. And I have a lot of experience really looking at not only budgets, but also creative ways to do school. And my daughter had a lovely experience at Hopkinton. And I want to make sure that every student has a great experience in their education through Hopkinton schools. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Richard.
Okay. 2 minutes, fast. Yeah, I'm originally from Queens, New York. So I'm embarrassed to say this, but I didn't know that so many people from Hopkinton in one room could be so intimidating, but here we are. So my name's Richard Sala. Just very briefly, before I moved to New Hampshire, I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps. I spent about 10 of those as an infantryman, another 5 as an infantry officer, and then I was selected for the JAG Corps. I spent my last five years as a judge advocate. When I retired, we originally moved to Grafton County. We lived in a small town on New Hampshire Route 118 called Dorchester, not Massachusetts, New Hampshire. And then my first job when I got out was counsel for the commissioner of the Department of Education here in New Hampshire. I left that job to take kind of a bucket list job. I was a professor at a law school where I taught constitutional law and national security law. During that time, I was appointed by Governor Sununu to the State Board of Education. And then I left the law school to go back to the Department of Education, where I serve as the director of vocational rehabilitation. The short version of why I decided to run for school board is after I moved here, I convinced a lot of my family to move here too. And if you'd asked me 6 months ago if I was going to run for school board, I would have told you no. I want to fish and hunt and relax. But as the trajectory of the budget was growing, I realized that I might have brought my family to an untenable situation. And I think the second reason is I don't think we talk about the school budget with enough compassion for all of our community. I hear a lot of people, single income people, fixed income people saying this is hurting us. But the trajectory doesn't seem to be slowing down. Other things that I'm interested in working with on the school board, like to see our kids have more physical education, more physical movement during the day. There's lots of reasons for that. I don't have enough time to go into them. And then the last two is exposure to the arts, which I think is really important. And lastly, beginning to expose our kids in the school system to artificial intelligence, which they will use in the workforce as they continue to grow. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Hey, Suzanne, so the first question I have for you,
Yeah.
what is the one most important strength you will bring to the board if elected?
Great question. I think that I have a lot of experience having difficult conversations. To Richard's point about the trajectory of the budget, right? Like we're on a fixed income. I'm a teacher. My husband is disabled. We're making a go of it in Hopkinton. And what was probably going to be our starter home is our forever home, right? And we'd like to keep it that way. And I'm not afraid of having difficult conversations. In fact, it's probably what I have my master's degree in is kind of culture and climate and looking at organizational development. And I think that I am able to, I also have a contract negotiation background. So I'm pretty well versed in building consensus and having difficult conversations because, right, if we are going to keep our schools sustainable and the financing sustainable, we need to have some difficult conversations. And I think I am pretty well versed at organizing and facilitating and having those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, same question for you. What is the one most important strength you will bring to the board if elected?
Yeah, I think it's not that different, actually. I love working with people. It's okay to have different points of view, to bring those points of view to the table. Recognize that you're one person on a 5-person committee. Come with ideas, look at the facts, be willing to concede when your position is not tenable. I've been doing that for a long time, both as an infantry officer when I was negotiating, peace issues in Iraq, as a criminal prosecutor, as general counsel, and then in the education setting, while I was counsel working with superintendents and school board associations and so on.
Thank you. So the next question, Richard, is for you to start. What, if any, changes would you make or suggest for the currently proposed school budget and warrant articles?
Yeah, I think specifically on the school budget, I wouldn't approve it. I would recommend that we don't approve it. I don't think the increase is necessary. I think we could survive on last year's budget. I think that we can have great schools and compassion for our neighbors. And so, that's been my primary focus, but the change would be, I would not recommend an increase to the budget.
Suzanne, can you tackle that question? What, if any, changes would you make?
Sure. If I probably in looking at the proposed contract specifically for the teachers, I would have asked, for a 3% flat increase for teachers. I also would have dug in a little bit and looked at their allotment for sick days and personal days. I know the contracts in the area like the back of my hand, and I know that some of those areas are places that are either like low cost, no cost in terms of risk for the teachers, giving up, the one one sick day or one personal day. For example, they're allotted 4 personal days, whereas most teachers in the district, or excuse me, in the area are allotted 3. What does that do to the budget when you are applying one extra personal day for, say 75, 100 employees? Looking at some of those things that maybe don't really cost a teacher much, but perhaps increase the budget by $10,000, $20,000, things there. Taking a look at, I think that the contract was negotiated well in terms of they're starting to look at getting teachers to pick up some of the healthcare. I probably would have asked to negotiate a separate matrix for new teachers coming in with a different percentage of healthcare responsibility. And those are some things kind of off the bat. I think that the school board did go back and found like another $300,000 when asked. And some of that was due to attrition. Some of that was due to reducing a position. But I do think that we maybe could have done a little bit better with the proposed contract. And in my talking with some teachers and community members, looking at some of the programming, is there a little bit of a cut that we could have made maybe to some purchases where there are some bigger ticket items that have to do with buildings and grounds that need to be done, that can't be put off any longer. That's
Thank
it.
you.
You're
Yep.
welcome.
Thank you. So Suzanne, it's your turn to go first, right?
Sure.
What knowledge deficit do you have in relation to sitting on the school board, if any? And how would you remedy this?
It's a great question. I think, I don't know what I don't know. I have a lot of, I've sat through a lot of board meetings. I have a lot of experience in education, right? I do have lots of board experience. I was on the board for 5 years and board chair of the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. We managed an $11 million budget, 12 different agencies under us, lots of federal grants, state and local grants. But that being said, I certainly come from a consensus building background. My Robert's rules are a little bit rusty, and there are always new challenges, right? In terms of putting out bids and buildings and grounds, that is not my expertise. I'm not afraid to ask questions and do the research, but I certainly have little to no experience on that end. So yeah, I'd have to learn a lot about like maintenance and what those sorts of things look like and what actual costs should be. That's probably it.
Thank you, Suzanne. Richard, do you want me to read the question?
No, it's a good question, but I think, I've never been on a school board. I think just getting to know, you have to get to know people, understand what people's values are. I've been in town for almost 4 years. So, a lot more interaction, I think, with the community and getting to understand, what it is we want to accomplish together. It's been kind of natural course for me over the course of my career to have to learn new things and read and get smart on issues. And I don't find it particularly difficult. So I'm not that worried about it.
Okay, now I know that you get this question first. So what do you bring to the school board that the current composition might be lacking?
I think I would be a voice in the room that is saying we need to lower the budget. At least it's been my experience here that it's very uniform. When we go to talk about the budget, everybody's for it. I don't feel like there's a lot of dissent. I definitely come from a different perspective on this. I don't think we can sustain the increases. I don't think they're necessary. I don't think they're compassionate to everybody in town. And really that's one of the reasons that I'm running is I just want to, again, I'm one person on a 5-person board, but I think I bring a different perspective with regards to fiscal restraint.
Suzanne, thank you, Richard. Suzanne, what is the one or two skill set that you might bring to the board that the current composition is lacking?
Well, I think Richard may have cornered the market on this euphemism, but I am definitely a boots on the ground kind of girl. And I'm willing to get dirty. Like I will go into schools. I know schools. I've worked in schools for 25 years. I also know the challenges that schools face, and I know the people to talk to. I know that if I speak to the superintendent, I am going to get a different answer than if I speak to a second grade teacher, right? I know where to kind of dig and to figure out where the problems are, and probably to be pretty creative with solutions. That being said, I know the schools and I know contracts in the area. And I know a lot of people who work in education. And so like we maybe aren't doing something that we could be doing. And I know where to kind of get, the model for that, or to be able to talk to somebody who has, a different system that we could potentially adopt that might get us someplace. I don't know. I guess I'm Hopkinton kind of through and through. That's it.
Okay, good. So Suzanne, you get this one first. You'll be so
All
thrilled.
right.
SB2, for or against?
Okay, this is a hard question for me, but so there's a part of me who loves town meeting, right? I always learn something at town meeting. But I also think in this day and age, Hopkinton's demographic has changed. I think that town meeting, in a sense, can be elitist and ableist, right? I have a disabled husband who can't go to town meeting because there's too much for too long, can't follow. And I hear that from people, right? People have to work on Saturday. And so I think I could work in whatever system the people decide, but I'm not loving town meeting because it is exclusionary. So if we adopt SB2, that just means that my job as a board member is to come up with a reasonable budget and then publicize the heck out of it so that people can get behind it. I don't think we have a town that is going to vote down a budget just because. If you can make a valid budget, if you can publicize it and get the word out and build consensus around the budget will pass, whether we have SB2 or whether we have town meeting. So at this point, I think that we need to go, I think we need to do SB2, but I want to make sure that people know what they're getting into with SB2, because if SB2 passes, we may end up, in a budget fails. Sometimes the default budget, which would go into effect, is higher than the proposed budget. And so that's something that I think that we need to be aware of when we adopt SB2. If we adopt SB2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rick?
Yeah, I'm in favor of SB2 for the same reason that I'm in favor of controlling the budget trajectory, which is just being compassionate for people. People shouldn't have to choose between, like I did last year, have to choose between their kids' hockey playoffs and sitting in town meeting waiting for, to be able to vote. People who are experiencing disabilities shouldn't have to suffer through the whole day. It's a small ask, and the return is very large.
There are a number of questions. I'm going to ask one final question in the interest of time. If you submitted a question and it wasn't asked, my apologies. Perhaps at the end, if we have some time, we can revisit some of them. So, your turn to go first, Richard. Thank you. Given the disastrous outcomes from COVID school masking policies, would you support current New Hampshire House Bill HB 360 that prohibits school mask mandates for our children? If not, what are your qualifications for making a decision on masking our school children? Can I just say, as moderator, I didn't love this question because I don't know how on point it is in the current time, but I thought it was a good question in terms of how do you support a school board and how do you make your decisions? So
Yeah,
if that's helpful, Richard.
I think this is a really context specific kind of question. I mean, I'll just say, let me just start from the beginning. My son has a speech impediment, so masks really disrupted his learning because one of the ways that you improve when you have a speech impediment is to see people's mouths. Um, and it turned out the masks were garbage. It was a lie. I didn't want to say that, but it's true. So it was garbage. And it was unnecessary. I would not be in favor of a bill uniformly outlawing masks because maybe it's true for something else that we don't even know about yet. And there are people who are more qualified to think about or make recommendations about, things that have to do with public health. Just turns out in the context of COVID, it was rubbish.
Richard, thank you. Suzanne, do you want me to read the question again?
No, I think I got it. I mean, in terms of, I won't say it was a lie, right? In terms of the masking, like people did what they thought they were supposed to be doing at the time based on the information that they had at the time. And Maya Angelou said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And so there's a different solution now, right? We would come up with something better. But to Richard's point, like, we don't know what's coming down the pipeline. And maybe there is a reason that we would need to do something. I would hope that we wouldn't, right? I taught during that. It was like absolutely horrible for everyone involved. And I would never want to go back to that situation. And I would assume that, if we're struck down with a plague, that, we'll come up with a different solution. So I wouldn't, I guess, I would not be in favor of, a policy that says everybody has to mask or else. But I also would never prohibit somebody's ability to mask if they needed to.
Thank you. And that's going to conclude the school board candidate session. Suzanne, thank you for zooming in. I hope you didn't miss anything out there. And
They went 3 for 3.
just
Three
don't
for
tell us what
six.
the temperature is.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Nice.
All
Bye.
right. We are going to move on to the select board. So if our select board candidates would like to come up and join us.
They're in alphabetical order.
And what a nice time to say, I really think we should be appreciative of all these folks who are willing to run and what I would say, stick your head out of the ground, sort of like whack-a-mole. So thank you, everybody. Is alphabetical order okay for opening statements?
Sure. Rock, paper, scissors, but I will take alphabetical order for the sake of time.
Love it. Last name first. Vicky.
Hello, everybody. I'm Vicki Brown. Hello. I'm going to do my best to articulate and enunciate behind my mask.
Boy, close.
This,
Close.
okay. I'm running for the select board because I care deeply about our town and our collective future. 5 qualities that I think I possess that would help me as a select person are: first, I'm very respectful. Second of all, I voice gratitude whenever I can. Third, I'm creative. Fourth, I'm brave, right? I'm wearing a mask after, and I have a strong sense of loyalty. My Hopkinton roots run deep. My mother, Joanne Casino, who some of you may know, moved here in 1991. and from New York City. And I started first grade in Mrs. Lepre's class at Harold Martin. My husband grew up here too. Our kids now go to Harold Martin. My credentials are varied. I have a bachelor's degree in government. I have a master's degree in public administration, and I have a basic accounting certificate from NHTI. As adults, my husband and I knew that we wanted to move back here to raise our kids. We bought my mother's house on Hopkinton Road, and we plan to stay forever. We want to pass the house down to the third generation and continue our family's relationship with the town. I believe the select board should focus on a lot of things, but cherishing the town's excellent resources and staff is an important priority. I also believe the select board is an engine for change and growth. And I got the red card. So I will work the rest of this into my answers beyond saying thank you to the Rotary Club and to the town and to everyone who's here and to everyone on Zoom.
Thanks, Vicky. Alyssa, Emmett next.
Okay. Hi, guys. Can everyone hear me okay, despite the mask? Awesome. So first, like Vicky just said, thank you to the Rotary. Thank you to the other candidates for being here. Thank you to everyone online who is calling in. Like, just deeply appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here. My name is Alyssa McCann, and I am proud to have called Hopkinton home since 2018. I live here with my husband, Luke Simon, and our spirited son, Owen, who attends preschool at Harold Martin. As the owner of Witching Hour Coffee and Provisions in Kentucky, I champion sustainability and community connectivity every day. It is my jam. It is what I am about. My background before owning Witching Hour spans over a decade in the nonprofit sector, focusing on community engagement and coming together. Since moving to Hopkinton, I've had the pleasure of being one of the co-founders of Two Villages Art Society, which is off to the races with an amazing board and an awesome season. And if y'all haven't been over there, go and see them. I've also been able to help create and support community events behind the scenes, like sustainability days over at the library, or helping behind the scenes for Starry Weekend. I'm running for select board because I believe in Hopkinton and the strength of our collective community. I have seen and experienced the growing divisions and frustrations. I think we all have. I am passionate about finding practical solutions to our tough problems and bringing together that which actually unites us to solve those problems. I'm ready to bring my skills and experience to the table because this campaign is a job interview. And I'm excited to show you what I can bring to Hopkinton. I encourage you to reach out to me after the candidates forum because I want to hear from you. My email is literally my name. So it's alyssamccann@gmail.com. So please reach out and let me know what you're thinking and what you want to be true. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Brian.
My turn, huh?
And has everybody figured out that Ken Trom is keeping time? All right. Green is 1 minute, I presume.
Yes, green is 1 minute to go and red is.
So thank you for doing such a good job without the, yeah.
Or else we'll take a question, Michael.
So my turn. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Russo. I've lived in Hopkinton for 26 years. I've had 2 kids that have gone through the school system. A little bit about me, kind of the horn I like to toot is I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. I have about 30 years of IT, running IT management, computers, networks, servers for a lot of companies in Concord. Before that, I was a government contractor. Last contract I worked was Los Alamos National Labs, where I was in charge of a custom homegrown software package that basically was what they call an earned value management system that tracks all the costs that the lab produces and generates reports to the government. So I have a lot of history in project management. I've worked a lot of companies on the IT side as well, where I believe my skills bringing to the select board, there's a lot of what am I looking for? There's a lot of knowledge and interactions that I've had with a lot of stakeholders from government to business, where I can bring those skills and negotiations from IT background, project management background, and I think that will help the select board focus its items that it needs and decisions that will benefit the town and everybody.
Thank you. Alyssa, this one's for you. What is the one most important strength that you will bring to the select board if elected?
I believe that the thing I'd bring to the select board is a through line in direct communication and transparency to the community. Having been to a number of select board meetings over the last 6 months as I considered running, I was so impressed with the depth of conversation that was happening, the rigor of conversation, the back and forth with the dedicated folks who attend the meetings, some of whom I'm seeing here tonight. And where I felt like we could do more was then in communicating the cliff notes of that to the community, because there is so much good happening. In my background in communication and in communicating with large stakeholders, I'd want to work with that good work to share what are the conversations that happened, what were the decisions that made, and where are projects moving to.
You read it again?
Yes. What is the one most important strength that you will bring to the select board?
My one strength that I would bring to the select board is being able to make tough decisions for tough types of projects. Being able to look at the fiscal responsibilities of everybody that pays their taxes here and making sure that they're getting the best bang for the buck, the right contractor to do it, and the right contract that'll benefit everybody and not be a frivolous waste of money.
Thank you. And Vicky, that leads you to bring up the rear this time.
Okay, perfect. This is a great opportunity to work in my paragraph I skipped, which is, I think experience gets to be the thing I'd like to highlight about myself. And institutional memory, which might go hand in hand. I can see Mrs. Allen in the audience. I used to work at the Hopkinton Community Center before it was the Everyday Cafe. And I've been on the budget committee for 3 cycles, and I've been the clerk of the Hopkinton Village Precinct since June of 2020. Precinct is difficult to say with a mask on. Professionally, I have great experience in terms of being an office manager, a bookkeeper, a person who works in customer service. I think all of these experiences would feed into hopefully a successful time on the select board.
Thank you, Vicky. I'm up to you, Brian.
Okay.
What skill set do you bring that can help the board guide its way through the large array of capital projects that are ahead, specifically road improvements and transfer station management?
Skill sets that I bring is negotiation skills. So being a product owner for a large government entity, Department of Energy, Los Alamos National Labs, I had to work directly with stakeholders from the everyday people in the trenches all the way up to senior level people and have negotiation skills to make sure that everything that those stakeholders wanted to be put into the software would benefit everybody. And that's one of the things that the select board needs to make sure that they focus on, is that the projects and everything that they're doing are fiscally responsible and benefit everybody.
Thank you. Vicky, you're welcome to contradict me when I get this wrong, Vicky, but would you like me to read that again?
I said, yes, please.
Yes. What skill set do you bring that can help the board guide its way through the large array of capital projects that are ahead, specifically road improvements and transfer station management?
I have a lot of skill sets, but I think my favorite thing to do is to research and to talk to experts. And so not being an expert myself on how to run a transfer station or how to rebuild a road, I would take the proper time to talk to the people who work here in town, to talk to the state department, whatever applicable department administers the rules that govern the roads or the transfer station or whatever other problem we're trying to tackle. So I think being able to research and then report on what I've learned is my best skill set.
And that means, Alyssa, would you like me to read the question again?
I'm good. I love that we all have different skill sets. It's kind of awesome. So I have a background in project management, in keeping track of long-term projects with large budgets in which you can't go over by a penny. And in my experience, often we go over budget when we lose sight of what we are trying to do, what actually needs to happen and when it needs to happen by, and by delaying decisions. Because often the further you kick the can, the more expensive it gets. So the skill set I would bring would be strong project management and then group facilitation. Because the other way that things go out of hand is when group think and committee conversations drag on and we don't get to that solution. And I will say, I do think our current select board and our past select boards have done a pretty bang up job. And my hope is that I would complement the other skill sets already on the board and bring something new to the table with that focus on project management and communication.
Thank you.
Can I append mine?
Yeah, of course.
Real quick, one of the other things based on what she's talking about, project management, that was a great answer. I'm also a certified Scrum Master. I'll let you Google that if you're not sure what it is, but I got the certification to help facilitate meetings and project management. And also one of the things that goes along with a Scrum Master is what we call an agile methodology. Some people in this room may also know that. It's heavy in the software industry, but it's a method of managing projects in small biteable chunks that you can get done a certain amount of work, reanalyze it, make sure that you're on the right track for it, and you can course correct if need be, if you're not. The other type of project management is called a waterfall method, where you dump a whole bunch of money, you write a scope of work, you do it, you get to the end of the scope, and you failed because it's not the product that was originally designed because time in between changed. Agile methodologies allow you to course correct throughout the project. So I think that would be a huge benefit for the select board to manage projects like that.
Vicky, Alyssa, do either of you have an appendage?
Can I? Can I use my time to invite the people saying that they're filling here?
Do your time.
Okay. There's some seats over here, guys.
I have no change, but I love that you're going to have everyone Googling Agile now. That's awesome. I did not have that on my bingo card for tonight, so kudos.
And where are we to go first now?
I think it's my turn,
It's your turn to go first?
right? Yeah. Hey, it's nice to meet you, by the way.
Thank you for keeping me on track. I should have brought a pen.
No worries. You can have my pen.
Vicky, what are the three most serious issues facing the town that the select board can impact?
Let me think about it for a second.
It's fine. And I'm not counting,
Okay.
by the way. I'm not.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I am.
There's a lot. But in order to be brief, I'm just going to say the transfer station, the roads, and housing. I can elaborate if you want.
I think you're allowed more words if you want.
You're
Okay.
allowed more words if you want them, or you can append your answer after you listen to the. I think we don't leave it there.
I think we need more housing. I think the roads are aging and we need to keep investing in them. And I think they're continuing to change and professionalize the dump. And I support all the changes that have been made. And I think there's more work to do.
Alyssa, what are the three most serious issues facing the town that the select board can impact?
Yeah, so I think one of the issues that I have a feeling we'll touch on later is how we come together to make decisions as a community also known as SB2 and ongoing saga. So I'm not going to go too far into that because I think we'll talk about it later. Another area that I think that the select board can really lean in is similar to what Vicky said, is our housing and making it so that the folks that grew up here can afford to live here, making sure that anyone that works in town can live in town, and making sure that we have enough housing through a variety of types of housing. And while I understand that that is more in the purview of the planning board, I think there's a lot that the select board can do to lead and to influence in that realm. And then the last thing that I'll mention that's near and dear to my heart is, and I know it's an ongoing thing, is the infrastructure, specifically the sidewalks in our town or the lack thereof. And I know that there has been so much work done around that in terms of studying, but the reason why I mentioned project management earlier is I think that there is more we can do to communicate the work that has been done, where we are derailed, and how do we move forward from here. Because y'all, I want to be able to walk across the street in Kentucky Village without slightly fearing for my life on a daily basis. Also, as you can see, I really believe in bringing levity and fun to these serious conversations because life is short. And if we're not going to giggle a little bit, then what are we doing?
Thank you. Richard, the three most serious issues?
Richard's over there. Go ahead, Rich.
Not that I'm looking at the name tag. I too have many skills.
Fabulous job.
Seriously, three issues that the select board can impact.
All right, so one, I am not for more housing. I am for more business. My concern with more housing is we get more people in town that can't afford their taxes. I think growing and zoning business areas so we can grow some commercial space, I think would outweigh the benefits of building a ton more houses. The other one is I'm also, one of the other hats I wear, I'm a firefighter, advanced EMT. And I have concerns. If not everybody knew it, but there's actually a nationwide shortage of EMS and fire providers. So I champion our guys in red and blue. I'm all for police. Who are you going to call if you're having chest pain if we start cutting EMS and fire? And I've been hearing that a lot in towns. I'm starting to hear it here. There's a lack of shortage and somebody might not come, and don't think that the next town doesn't have the same shortage problems, because they do. So my third one would probably be for roads. I'll split it between that and the landfill as well, but.
Thank you. Any appending?
I would say that just because something wasn't mentioned doesn't mean that it's also not important. And I absolutely agree that expanding our business base goes hand in hand with housing, but it's going to be hard to attract businesses without the housing to support folks being here to work for those businesses. So I do think they go hand in hand, and one isn't going to succeed without the other.
Yep. Thank you. So I'm going to segue here. Alyssa, what do you think the select board is doing right? Or wrong, if you must?
I mean, oh, that's such a great question. So how many people have been going to select board meetings lately? Because it is, I was like, I see some people that I'm like, hey, there are such rich and robust conversations. And something that I deeply appreciate about the current select board is when they pause and say, I don't know. And then they go and seek the answer, or they accept new facts through the conversation that's happening in the room. I appreciate the way the meetings are facilitated and the way how, whether you're on Zoom or in the room, you are a part of the conversation. You are not separate from, you are with them in it. There have been so many times I've accidentally broken decorum, and Sabrina has been so kind about helping me slot into the right place in the meeting. And that kind of inclusivity makes local government accessible. And so I will say the way that they are facilitating their meetings and inviting us all in, for those of us that are able to be there, whether on Zoom or in person, has just been amazing, particularly if you're someone who's afraid of putting your foot in the mouth. So I just want to say the way the meetings have been run, the way they've encouraged community engagement, and the robust conversations they're having have just been great.
Thank you. And just to prove I can, Vicky, what do you think the select board is doing right or wrong?
I really appreciate everything the select board does. I think it's a lot of hours and it's a lot of detail, and they do their very best to make sure that not only they understand it, but that they communicate it to the public. I appreciate that when they are looking at budget, I was on the budget committee, so that's my lens that I usually look through. So when looking at the budget, they're not just looking at big ticket items with big round numbers. They're using the best knowledge that they have for digging into small issues, medium issues, and big issues, and specifically trying to make our money work for us. We've had a high interest rate environment, and the select board's been really careful about making sure that we're getting the best bang for the town's buck while it's sitting waiting to be spent. I really appreciate that.
Brian?
Sure, you don't want Rich.
If we have some time, I'll let Richard answer the question, Brian, but this is for you.
What are they doing right and what are they doing wrong? So
And/or, it's an and/or.
and/or, yeah. From what I've seen, and I'm new to watching select board meetings on YouTube, so I'm one of the 72 subscribers. You should all subscribe to the channel. I would like to see them run meetings more efficiently, being a scrum master and having a background like that. They tend to draw out and get kind of boring. I know it's nitty gritty, but I think the whole thing could be condensed and accelerated in just more of a streamlined process for better outcomes.
Thank you. Vicky, what is the role of a single select board member?
I believe the role of a single select board member is to use whatever their skill set is to benefit the town as best as they can, and to give as much of their time as they can reasonably give outside of the meeting, outside of the scheduled meetings, whether that's being part of an existing club or organization that supports the well-being of the community, or doing their due diligence and going to the dump as just maybe a member, as sitting as a member of the public and watching how the traffic flow is, or watching whether or not enforcement is happening. They do so much outside of their meetings, but I think it's important to do what you can and to use your senses and your logic and your common sense when engaging in the wider community, and then bringing what you learned back to the table.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Brian go in the middle. I'm trying to make.
No, I like it. It's unpredictable. Let's do it.
The role of a select board member should be to, first of all, listen. You have to listen to everybody, not just your peers on the select board meeting. You have to interface with your town administrator. You have to interface with all of the departments within the town itself. You need to hear everybody. You need to be able to bring and articulate that back to the board. You need to be able to, if you have an issue that you're championing to the rest of the board, you have to be able to articulate that well. But the key role is to be able to listen and balance and know what the needs of the town across the board, from the residents to all of the entities like police, fire, town clerk, et cetera.
Thank you. Anybody want to append?
I would like to go.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I know, seriously.
Those.
So from my perspective, it's to be a sponge. I mean, it's twofold. It's to be a sponge, which means to soak up what everyone is telling you in town, what you are seeing, what you are experiencing. It's also to ask questions, so not to take information given at face value, but seek to understand the why that's behind it. Beyond that, I think it's also to serve for the all as opposed for yourself, if that makes any sense. To think about what are the needs of the community above my own individual needs, because as a select board member, your voice gets amplified. And so how you use that voice is so important, and making sure that that voice is for the good of the whole community as opposed to just your own or your own demographic is so incredibly important.
Thank you. This is the final question, and it is the same final question as the school board. SB2. Brian.
I am for it. Years ago, I used to attend town meeting and it was extremely painful because you'd have to wait X amount of time sitting on the hard bleachers for your one item that you may want to vote on. So I think having that flexibility and to jump on what Rich was saying for people with disabilities, I think that's a great way to go. As well as the dynamics change. There's no reason why we can't change. And the other thing, I know talking to my fire chief that Ware has it, they said it takes a little bit longer to do the voting, but it's worth it. So I've had feedback from other people, so I am in favor for it.
Thank you. Alyssa.
Yeah, I'm complicated and I'm sorry for that. So I think our problem is not town meeting or SB2. Or actually, I think they're both our problem. I don't think either one is going to solve the ultimate issue that we are trying to tackle right now, which is accessibility. SB2 in the deliberative session involves people getting together to have those conversations. And to me, that has the same accessibility issues as town meeting. And so I am disappointed in both. And don't get me wrong, I love town meeting. I love to pack my snacks, I bring my water, I bring my book when we have that downtime. Like, I love it. And I have so many peers, acquaintances, and friends in town who cannot engage in town meeting. And nothing changes for them with the deliberative session. Nothing changes. And so what I would like to see us do is I would like to see us move past this particular conversation. And this is hard work and this will not happen overnight. But I would like to see us form a committee composed of people who are for and against SB2 to explore what are we trying to solve with SB2. Because I mentioned accessibility, and that is my hope and dream that that is what the problem is we're trying to solve. But I don't know. This is a big town. Maybe there's other problems we're trying to solve. For that committee to define what the problem is, and once the problem has been identified, to bring together community members who represent those constituencies to solve the problem. Because when we try to solve problems for other people having not been in their shoes, we come up with the wrong solutions. I understand that what I'm imagining here does not happen overnight. It doesn't solve our problem right now. It doesn't solve it next year. I also recognize that solutions we come up with may not exist as law. But here's the thing, guys. Laws are made up. A group of people sat around, they made them up, they got them voted on. And so I am incredibly passionate about finding solutions that work for this town, that solve our accessibility issues. And I don't care if that means that the town of Hopkinton decamps to Concord and we protest to get what we need and want. We will do that. But here's the thing. SB2 doesn't fix it. Neither does town meeting. And here is my concern that no matter which way this vote goes in a couple weeks, if we get SB2, we'll be like, yay, we have SB2, problem solved. And if we don't get it, it's like, oh, we have to fight again for SB2. And the conversation doesn't change. And the problem doesn't get better. So I will be voting against SB2 at school board and town meeting because I am voting for something different. Because I don't want to spend the time implementing SB2 and wasting that time when we should be working towards other solutions that solve accessibility. And if SB2 passes, I know, guys, I could talk for days. I'm sorry. If SB2 does pass, I'm thrilled to work within that, but I ask that everyone not forget that the deliberative session is not accessible and the problem is not solved. And we still have more work to do. So that's my case and I'm sticking to it. And you can give me a call or shoot me an email if you want to talk more about it. And or if you're like, yes, let's go protest at the State House. We'll go tomorrow.
Vicki, would you like to talk about SB2?
Sure. Some people in here, I'm looking at Carol Shapira, know what a hard time I've had with this question. I am from here. I grew up in a single parent household. So my mother took me to town meeting. And I honestly feel like town meeting is what put me on the trajectory of studying government and loving public service and watching Sue Strickford particularly. But personally, last year I was out of town for school district meeting and I was unable to vote in favor of the school budget. I would have voted in favor of it, but I didn't have an opportunity to vote for it at all. So when we got to town meeting, I was still internally struggling. Also, because I have that loyalty, I mentioned it at the top of the hour. I can't change on a dime. And I very rarely, if ever, will die on a hill for something. I want to learn more, and I'm happy to change my mind with information presented as time moves forward. So I voted for SB2 at town meeting last year. I'm like outing myself, but that's fine. Because I literally 2 weeks beforehand, I was unable to vote for the school district budget. And so I want everyone to make their own decision. I'm sorry if you feel like that's a cop-out, but we've had such an exhaustive years and years worth of discussion on this that everyone just needs to make the choice that's right in their heart.
Right, thank you. So that concludes the questions for these three candidates who are willing to put themselves out there and run for select board. Thank you.
So much trapped in here.
So we are going to bring our budget committee candidates to the front of the room if they'd like to join us.
I think you got it. Sure, it isn't sure good. Kind of see it pretty close to you. It's a divider.
Thanks, everybody. We do have one candidate who was unable to join us. And Maura Carroll, my fellow Rotarian, is going to read her statement first, if that's okay. Karen's statement is also up on the Zoom screen, but I suppose that's really for the folks at home. So Maura, if you'd be so kind.
Those of you who know Karen would know right away that I'm not Karen. So I just want to read the statement that she presented. And she apologizes for not being able to be here tonight, but she's currently on a plane. She's running for the budget committee again because she feels that it is the time that she gets involved again in local government. So as a quick background, I'll read it as though I were Karen. I've been in town since 1990. My husband, Jim, and I raised 2 children who graduated from Hopkinton High School, and so did my mother. My grandfather was Harold Martin. I was previously on the budget committee from March 2005 to March 2014 for 3 3-year terms, and was chairman for several years of my previous time on the budget committee. Some of you may remember that. In my tenure on the budget committee, I have managed meetings and the budget committee agenda for the financial review of the Hopkinton school budget, the town of Hopkinton budget, the Kentucky Village precinct budget, and the Hopkinton precinct budget by the 10-member committee. I facilitated the relevant financial information for review and public comment and participation, and provided information at town and school district meetings as to the budget committee's proposed budget. I hope you will consider voting for me for another 3-year term on the budget committee. And if you can't see the number or the email on the screen, I'm happy to provide it to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, if it's okay with everybody, we're going to go in alphabetical order. And interestingly enough, whether we go by first name or last name. Amy.
Aren't I wonderful?
Thank you, candidates, for being here. Amy, your opening statement.
I'm Amy, and I've lived in Kentucky about 20 years. My daughter graduated the high school in 2013. I have been on the budget committee in the Janet Krasniak era. She encouraged me to run the first time. I lost my reelection, such is life. My view for our town is simple: to make it livable for everybody. I have a history of running behind in my taxes. I catch up, but it's a struggle for some of us who are one income. So my hope to be on this committee is to help bring the ideas of the folks who need help and the folks who don't need help, because we each have our own needs and wants, hoping to voice for the have-nots so that we can all play together nicely and live in this town. It's nice. I don't want to have to leave it. I don't. So that's why I'm running, to see if I can't help others stay in town. And I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Eric.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to make this not sound like a job interview, but I guess I'll just go with job interview route. So I got a bachelor's in finance, master's accounting. I was budget analyst for 10 years. I was property tax manager for 2 years. Yeah, I just thought I'd be able to add experience and education to being on the budget committee. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Lauren.
Evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Lauren Clement. It feels odd to be sitting on this side of the table because I spent so much time on the other side. My wife and I moved to Kentucky in 2008 seeking out the American dream, marry your wife, find a house, and start a family. And we have 4 beautiful kids, and my wife is a dedicated employee to the Harold Martin School as an IA. I, for the last 4 years, have spent quite a bit of time following the school board, following the select board, engaging in civic community, engaging with the community. I had a landscape business in this community for 13 years. And then that evolved into one of my clients hiring me as a property manager. And now I oversee the maintenance on quite a few buildings, and that includes safety, security, could deal with any aspect of maintenance. That's really my strong point. I did have to budget as a business owner, and we all certainly have to budget as homeowners to make sure we can satisfy everything, all the expenses that come to us. And that is why I'm running. The short answer of it is because I care. And there's a lot of people in this community who are struggling and have asked me to run. And so that's why I'm here, putting my hat in the ring and trying to engage. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Christopher.
Hi, everyone. My name's Christopher Gross. I'm a candidate for our budget committee. I currently work for the state of New Hampshire's budget office as a business supervisor. As a business supervisor, I oversee 13 state agencies and 2 administratively attached agencies. Some of these departments are Department of Corrections, Department of Treasury, Liquor, Lottery, just to name a few. So in this role, I evaluate the financial operations of agencies to be sure that they're complying with all federal, state, local laws, and generally accepted accounting principles. I approve submissions for all contracts, grants, transfers, acceptances of monies for the governor and council. And during the budget process, I evaluate and approve procedures for agencies' budget submissions, and I advise the governor's office on budget requests. So given all this experience, I felt that I was uniquely qualified for the role of Hopkinton Budget Committee. On a personal level, I've been a resident of Hopkinton for about 10 years. I currently have 3 children in the Hopkinton schools, aged 16, almost 14, and 11. They're very active in town sports and school sports. So given this, I'm very interested in maintaining our schools. I've got a vested interest with my children on having good schools and having a good community because we love this town. That being said, we are on an unsustainable path currently with our current taxes. We ask so much of our residents, and I think in many cases right now, we're asking too much of our residents. Many people on fixed incomes are having to make decisions that they shouldn't be in a position to make. So given my experience, I bring the opportunity to analyze the budgets in the past and what we've done, look at what we're doing now, and come up with solutions that are fiscally responsible. I see my time is up, so I'll just end with saying, you know, if elected, I'll work to bring common sense approaches to fiscal responsibility. And thank you for the Rotary Club and for everyone coming out today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryce.
Good afternoon. I'm Bryce Petrocelli. I grew up in a small community in Connecticut, very similar to Hopkinton. Just like Hopkinton, we had people from all walks of life. In fact, our unofficial town slogan was "Where farmers and yuppies coexist." My father was a project manager at IBM and my mother was a public school librarian. During the summers, I worked in the trades, and after college and winter in Colorado, snowboard bumming, I returned to New England and began working for a multifamily developer in Boston. When the Great Recession hit and the developer folded, I went back to school and I got my law degree. I worked for a small personal injury defense firm after law school, which was great preparation for when my wife's career brought us to New Hampshire. When my wife Molly and I moved to Hopkinton in 2018 with our twin boys, Andy and Chet, I stepped away from my legal career and became a stay-at-home father. Nothing will prepare you for convincing 2 3-year-olds to get along and eat their vegetables like dealing with personal injury lawyers all day. In 2021, we welcomed our daughter Libby to the family, and she's been running the show at home ever since. As a family, we all enjoy the great outdoors, mountain biking, canoeing, and in the winter, you can usually find us at Pat's Peak on the weekends. Why did I decide to run for Budget Committee? Hopkinton, as we all know, is a great place to live. Molly and I moved to town because of the wonderful trails and parks and our beautiful library and, yeah, the outstanding schools. I want to see the assets that make this town great preserved, not just our physical assets and the infrastructure and the real estate and equipment, but also the community and the people who work to keep our town great. And yes, to maintain our town, all of these things and services that make it such a special place mean that we have to raise funds to do so, and the only tool we have to do that is property taxation. To be perfectly honest, I am not the candidate who will slash our budgets to nothing and overhaul the character of our community for the sake of reducing our tax bills. At the same time, I know a lot of families are struggling right now with stubborn inflation, and that the revaluation of our properties has hit a number of our community members very hard. Yet, with the costs of goods and services rising across the board, our elected officials have done a great job of keeping our tax increases to a minimum while maintaining everything that is so special about our town. If elected, I would work to maintain the fiscally responsible budget for a sustainable future that supports every member of the community and that my family and I love so much.
Thank you. Apologies, I just figured out there's no place where I can stand. All right, the next question is going to be yours, so we're just going to narrow this down.
It's gonna be short and sweet.
Can I ask for that nice girl? What one strength will you bring to the budget committee if elected?
I think I'm good at finding where efficiencies could be made and putting it to use. Yeah, at the county, I was a budget analyst, so I'd I was kind of in charge of looking at what the best use of their taxes were or their funds, and then making sure it's, yeah, public speaking's not my thing, so sorry. Yeah, I think finding efficiencies and putting your tax dollars best use.
Thank you. Lauren, what one strength will you bring to the committee if elected?
Thank you for that question. My strength, I think would be that I can represent individuals in this community who do not feel represented. I think there's a large segment in this community who do not feel represented on many boards, and they have stated that to me, and I would like to represent them. I think that's the strength.
Lauren, thank you. Christopher?
Experience. I've been doing this with the state for years. I've also been a financial data manager with the state for 5 years, and my ability to oversee budgets, which is more in line with what the budget committee does, not builds them directly. I think that's exactly what I do every day. So I think bringing those skills to the town will be very beneficial.
And Bryce?
I think knowing what questions to ask to get the information that I need and how to ask them, and then my ability to adapt my thinking given new information.
Thank you, Bryce.
Amy.
Amy, thank you.
Yep. I have a wonderful job. Unlike these fellows, I pay bills for a living. I'm an AP clerk for an environmental consulting firm. I know how to look at the invoices. I know how to look for the receipts. I know what is going in required for the budget. And people at work don't like to get an email from me. That's all I will say is Amy's here. I tell them if a vendor's giving you a hard time, you tell them I'm going to call them. So that's all I can tell you is, yeah, I'm that person in the office that you don't want to mess with. So that's me.
We're going to switch this question now. And we are going to start with you, Lauren. Feel free to correct me when I get this wrong. But this one is, what knowledge deficit might you have? And how would you go about curing it? In relation to sitting on the budget committee, I'm sure you have no other deficit.
I guess I don't know if it's a knowledge deficit, but I am dyslexic. That would probably be my biggest challenge. I learned to adapt to that at an early age, and computers probably, and the amount of time and energy that I need to put into drafting documents or grammar and spelling, and if I need to produce something, that's probably where my deficit is. I work hard to overcome it, and I don't let it hold me up, but that's where my deficit is.
Thank you, Lauren. Christopher, what knowledge deficit might you have in relation to sitting on the Town of Hopkinton Budget Committee, and how would you go about finding a remedy?
Probably the interaction with the different municipal divisions. I know how things work in the state, and I work with state agencies, but I don't really have experience hands-on with how the village and the town operate with the budget committee or the school with the budget committee. So I think that would be something that, I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to pick up. I don't suspect it's going to be very different from dealing with other state agencies. I think in the state, each agency is sort of independent and unique. I think it'll be a little different with the town. You're all working towards one overall goal and one overall budget with sort of subdivisions. But I think that'll be easy to pick up.
Thank you, Christopher. Bryce, do you want me to read the question?
No, I would say similar to Christopher, just the lack of institutional knowledge of just how the budget committee does interact with so many different entities in the town. And I certainly look forward to being able to dig in. And I think my ability to talk with people from every walk of life would serve me in that.
Thank you. Amy?
I'm not a mechanic. When they talk about needs for like the town, the repair guys, and they need machinery fixed, I don't understand that. But I learn, I'm a quick learner, you have to be. I think that's my greatest lack is knowing the mechanics of like industry. But, you know, there are people who know better than I do. Hard as that is to believe. Yes, there are people know better than I, and I know how to listen. Thank you.
Eric, you get to close out this question.
Probably just knowing what authority the budget committee actually has over how everything's spent. I think it'd be a good learning experience and yeah, I'd be asking a lot of questions and figuring out how it all works, so.
Christopher, so the budget committee supported all of the school board and the select board warrants this year. Do you? And if not, do you have any specific warrants that you might not support?
No, I did not support the budget as it was written. Specific warrants, no, but plenty of waste in the school budget that I saw. $10,000 for a retirement party, $1,000 for retirement gifts, $2,500 for food for the first day of school. These are things that we should not be burdening the taxpayer with. These are things that should be funded from within. I think the budget committee did a good job this year at trying to get some reduction. I think they got about $300,000 in reduction on the final version of the budget, which I thought was excellent. I thought it was a good starting point. But they too recognized that the budget was, there were things that could be done in a $27.5 million school budget. There were places that we could have saved a little bit more and still given our kids a great education. So no, I did not support it as it was. I probably would have supported it with a little bit more taken out.
And we're talking for both the school and the select board budgets and warrants. Bryce?
Could you just repeat the question?
The budget committee supported all of the school board and select board warrants. Do you? If not, which warrant do you not support?
Okay. Yes, I do. I think the select board presented a reasonable budget given, you know, inflation has been very high for years now. And I think that the increase in the budget is probably less than what the increase in the cost of living has been. Unfortunately, it's unrealistic to think that we can maintain our town and not have to pay for the same goods and services that so many of us have to pay for at home. And as far as the school, I would say the only issue I had there was the money that was taken out of the CIP. I think that was a tough cut because that's deferring maintenance costs, and those are only going to get more expensive down the road. The sooner we can repair things or replace them, the sooner they're going to be working more efficiently and probably costing us less money.
Find me. What's CIP?
The capital improvements.
Oh, Scott, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Done?
Mhm.
Amy?
We owe our kids the best that we can give them. Everybody agrees with that. However, we have under 1,000 students in our school. And I think it was too high. Where would I cut? I don't know. I didn't attend all the meetings. Things are just going to get more expensive, and it's going to get worse in the next coming couple of years. Where would I cut? I don't know, but it is too high. We're one town, 27 million. I talk to people, I work in Bedford. And they just shake their heads. So how do you pay that? Well, we all pay, but personally, I think it's past time for the state to have a sales tax and take the burden off of us. But that's neither here nor there. So I wasn't 100% behind the budget, but I do not know. I cannot say where I would have cut.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I think the school budget's probably the most important part of the entire community. I mean, besides police and fire, yeah, have a good school for a good future. So, I didn't look through any warrants or anything that I'd cut. So,
Fair enough.
yeah,
I'm reading the questions.
if I was on the budget committee, I would be looking through it a little harder.
Thank you. Lauren, the question actually specifically addresses the warrants. I think I confused it by adding budgets, but you're welcome to address both the school and the
Thank you.
select board budget and
Yep,
warrants.
I'll start with the select board. I think the select board, I attended many of the select board meetings. I actually started and enjoy watching the work sessions where department heads come in and present their needs and wants. And that's extremely helpful in understanding the whole of the process. I think that the select board hashed out things, right, that items that were $500. And so I am in support of the select board's budget. Some of the warrant articles that the select board have, the lagoons, whole situation is frightening to me that, and environmentally, whether we are, how is it going to impact the world that we live in and the town that we live in? But it's being mandated by the town. These lagoons are within close proximity of a huge landfill mountain, which people have been tossing things in for years. So I struggle ethically with understanding how this PFAS really, if it's as much of an issue for our community as not fixing roads and having culverts blowing out and sidewalks and the water and sewer stuff that's all ahead of us. So I struggle with that warrant article. Sounds like we obviously have $410,000 grant if we go ahead with this, and if we don't go ahead with it, we'll end up going down to the bottom of the list on that. And I believe there's also another 500,000 funding from somewhere. So we have some opportunity to clean this up, but I'm struggling with how that's better money well spent if it just was left alone there for 10 more years versus actually putting that 4.1 million towards our roads and Webster being able to put their 25% towards their roads and just leave it alone. I haven't seen that answer. So that's on the select board side. And then shifting over to the school board side, I understand the reductions that the school board has done. I believe again, with the work session that the school board holds in October, I think I was the only one present there. So I did listen to all the teachers and department heads speak about what they need. And then watch the reductions. Every year we hear about an athletic trainer, even though we know it's not going to happen. It's there's all sorts of items that are would be beneficial to the town, but it's just these increases are unsustainable for 961 students. And with having 4 students in the school, am fine with us getting focused on reducing what we do. I think we have to hit the pause button here on some of the programs. Doesn't mean they have to go away for life, but I think I'm not in support of the school budget as written. I haven't been in support of it for a couple of years because it's too much. The teacher contract is another warrant article, and I definitely spoke to that as soon as it was presented, that 12.25% increase with step bonuses is too big of an ask.
We're going to talk about this again.
Oh, we're going to
Feel
go.
free to wind.
Okay, that's a warrant article. That's why I was going for it, but I'm not in support of the teachers. And then the maintenance, buildings maintenance and trust, depending on how the operating budget gets voted on the floor, it can be adjusted. I don't like seeing that being reduced, but I understand why in order to fit the need of taxpayers.
Thank you. Would anybody like to add to their? Everybody's good? Bryce, it's your turn to go first. Given the large degree of information and disinformation that can be found on social media, what would be your approach to ensure that you are judging financial information on facts?
I know I mentioned that my mother was a school librarian. It has been instilled in me from a very young age to consider the source. If it's on social media, probably not true. Abraham Lincoln said that.
Oh, yeah.
I think, finding, where these sources are actually coming from and if there's actual data to back it up, and if it's coming from an institution that has some sort of a bias, that's something that's important to look at.
Good, thank you. Amy?
Well, social media, isn't it? It's not truth.
Well, I think the question is about how do you ensure that you're listening
Because
to the
it's-
facts?
It's
But yes,
consider the source. It's got no bearing on what's going on in our neighborhood because it's from all over. What we have to consider is what's going on in our town and in our area. Doesn't matter what social media says. I don't have a lot of respect for it. So you deal with what is in your neighborhood and what's in your backyard. What are the figures you're being given by the people who work with the different departments? What are the funds we have to work with? That's all that matters. Social media is just moot. It's got no bearing. Thank you.
thank you. Eric, we're up to you. Given the large degree of information and disinformation that can be found on social media, what would be your approach to ensure that you are judging financial information on facts?
Ignore it and actually go talk to department heads and see what needs to be done and how to actually spend the money.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Eric. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Most definitely. It's a pretty easy answer. Come attend the meetings. I've gone to select board meetings for about 4 years now. They present it all there. They put slide presentations up on there. They hand handouts. I have the current budget sheets for this year for the select board with all the warrant articles. Same with the school board. Again, you start at the beginning of an all-in budget and then they slowly peel it apart. The conversations unfold at the school board meeting. You get your 3 minutes maybe in the beginning, 3 minutes after, ask questions. Email board members, talk to faculty, staff, the people within the buildings. Social media is there. There's all sorts of opinions on there. It's like news and whatever. You got to take it for what it's worth, but clearly go to the source, put your time in. That's where the true answers are.
Thank you. Christopher?
My wife is a librarian too, so I'm not proud of this, but I joined Facebook about 4 weeks ago. I did it for this campaign. It was recommended that I do that by other people. Thanks, Amanda. I stay off of social media. That's just my personal thing. My wife doesn't. She loves it. I hate it. But no, I think I started going to meetings. I actually started talking to Lauren. I began going to meetings and getting information and getting more involved. And it's been very helpful. I'm not thrilled with what we have online right now for information. I'd like to see, and if I get on the budget committee, I know Steve, I think works on the web page. I'd like to see more on Hopkinton's town webpage as far as posting budgets and being more transparent with what's out there. It's just hard to find. You can find it. It's just not intuitive. It's not great. And I think that would go a long way to help involve the community and get answers out there when people do see things that are online. If they had a resource, a place on the town website where they could go and look that up and say, hey, that's not true. You know, they can rebut online what's factually out there. So.
And we started with you, Bryce. You want a closing comment anyway? Anybody want a closing comment? We're good. Librarian, children of. Amy,
Yes.
do you think that the current composition of the budget committee is appropriate and balanced?
Please explain that question.
I believe it's, one member from the Kentucky Village Precinct, one member from the Hopkinton Village Precinct, one select board member, one school board member, and then 3 elected?
Six elected.
6 elected?
Six.
6 elected, so 10 in total. My math is up to speed.
That's by statute.
By statute?
The representatives are.
It has worked. When I was on the budget committee before, we have the budget committee, and then we have the school representative, and we have the school board representative, and everybody explains, well, those 2 explain their position. Oh, and Ken is usually there. They explain their position, right? And we see what we have before us, and we take their information and we look at the budget and we ask questions, we get clarification. So yes, I think it's very helpful to have those representatives with the budget committee explaining why. And if we don't know why, we can't say yes or no. So I think it works well, my opinion.
Eric?
It sounds like there's plenty of people represented, so yeah, I would think it would work just fine.
Lauren?
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, do you think the current composition of the budget committee is appropriate and balanced? And I do understand that it's set by statute.
I think the statute does say that that's the minimum, and I want to say it could move up to a 12-person budget committee in the guidance thing that's on the budget committee's website. I don't know if our town warrants that 2 additional people. In years past, not just on the budget committee, but on many committees, you get very few people that step up and opt to run. So I think that going back to a previous point, that some people don't feel represented, that is not necessarily the faults of any board, but because certain people don't step up and run. And that's why I'm running. I would like to hopefully fill a gap for a segment of the community that feels underrepresented. Do I feel that the current board, well, it's changing. So we don't know what the current board's going to be, because there's a lot of moving parts here. There may be up to 4 different new members of this 10-member board. Ken has finished up his term as select board, and he's served on there for many a years. Vicky represents a precinct. However, if she ends up on the select board and doesn't end up as a budget committee member, she will have to have someone fill her seat. The school board could put up a different representative. So it's forever changing. And we have 2 open seats here, and one of us 5 or the other lady is going to end up there presumably, or a write-in. So that's a hard question because it's going to be a whole new melting pot here on the budget committee.
So much for balance. Christopher, would you like to tackle this?
I think, yeah, I don't think the question necessarily speaks to the people that are on the board, but the makeup of the board. So the board is supposed to act sort of like a legislative appropriations committee to the districts. Having 4 representatives of the districts and 6 members of the board, I think is pretty fair. If it went up to 7, I don't think it would be a problem, but I think it's fairly balanced, and I think that I think it's fine how it is. I don't see any reason for a change.
Bryce?
Yes, I think it is fine as it is constituted. Elections have consequences, and there are 6 members of the board. That's about 1 for every 1,000 people in our town. That's a pretty good representation. These are people who we, as a town, have elected to represent us. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody want to append anything? Good, thank you. So my final question, I was planning on my final question really being about sustainability and what is sustainability, because I, as moderator, chose not to ask this panel SB2 because the budget committee doesn't have the impact that both the select board or the school board have. So I didn't think it was as relevant, but if people want to raise their hand and say, I want to hear about SB2, we can do it. Was that as confusing as possible? Do people want me to ask each of these folks where they stand in SB2, or should we move on to our final question? Thank you very much. No, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, so the final question is, I've heard a lot of, that we don't have a sustainable trajectory going forward. We've been hearing that for years. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. So how do we want to talk about what is sustainable? What's a sustainable rate of growth? What's a sustainable tax increase? I'm going to leave it to you with how you want to address that. But does the question make sense to everybody? Good. And Eric, you get.
I get to go first, so. All right.
This means you get to go last.
Okay. Yeah, so a sustainable budget just means that people are able to actually pay their tax bills, so you have money to spend. I mean, if tax bill keeps going up and people aren't able to pay their taxes, then yeah, we're in a bad spot. And your tax bill shouldn't be that big of a hit on your total budget for living. Like,
It's New Hampshire, no income tax.
your taxes have to come from somewhere, but
We're getting pushed back. I mean, we're getting pushed back from the feds and from the state.
yeah, I mean, there should be other ways of funding some of these things we have to have. So
Good, Eric.
like
thanks.
finding other sources of revenue besides our tax bills would be good.
Sustainability. That tax stability has been a goal of the select board or school board for quite some time, and their budgets increased a ton in the since 2020. I do know what a lot of the key drivers are there, and I understand the dynamics, but for the person at home trying to maintain their household and understanding that a dollar doesn't go as far, and that our homes have been reassessed, and with the reassessments come larger insurance bills to cover the costs of homes. And when speaking to the community, you start hearing from over and over again that people are going to leave because it isn't sustainable. They can't retire here. It's upsetting. So, in order to get back to sustainability, we certainly need some economic development in the community, and that won't happen overnight. And if budgets and costs are going to continue to go up, we are going to have to push the pause button on some certain things. And it doesn't mean we have to eliminate them for a lifetime, but for the moment, we need to start making some reductions so people can stay here and aren't forced out.
Thank you. Christopher?
So as Lauren alluded to, the school budget went from about $20 million in 2020 to $27.5 million, roughly a 35 to 40% increase over the last 5 years. In the 10 years I've been here, my taxes, and I know it's anecdotal, but my taxes went from $7,800 to $14,000. Roughly a 72% increase in taxes. And I know Bryce has spoken to inflation and things have gone up. Yes, things have gone up and there has been inflation, but not that much inflation to account for those kind of increases. Do I think we should gut the budget? No, I don't. Do I think we should hold the line for a couple of years? Yes, I do. I think we need to hold the line, let things catch up a little bit, and then, 2 to 3% increases in line with inflation going forward seem like they're reasonable to me. But we've jumped so far ahead so quickly that we just can't continue on this path. And a percentage increase now on the giant increase we've already had is that much greater than if it was that percentage over the smaller number. So we need to slow down. We need to slow down. Like I said, I'm not for gutting anything, but I do think we, as Lauren alluded to, we need to pause. We need to just pump the brakes a little bit.
Bryce, the question is yours.
Could you
Yes, of course.
start again? I'm sorry.
What's a sustainable tax rate for Hopkinton? How much is a reasonable increase in our taxes each year? That might not be what exactly.
I don't think that's what anyone who has asked but me.
What I did say, I think, is that not everybody agrees that we need to slow the rate of growth. So my really question is, how do we talk about that? And what is a reasonable go forward strategy and sustainability for the budget? Is that closer?
Yeah, I think that's, so I think one thing that Chris touched on earlier that I totally agree with is the website can be very difficult to navigate when you're looking for information on the budget. And another thing that I found was a little buried was where to find the exemptions so that people who are getting hit the hardest and cannot afford to pay their taxes can, get some help and get what they need there. As far as, economic development, there's a lot of infrastructure I think we would have to spend money on in order to, try to attract more business to town. And I don't know that that's something that we're willing to take on, because that's going to be an increased tax burden there. I know from personal experience, when we moved in, we needed a new roof. We put on the new roof. And with that, we put on solar panels and our energy costs, while, most of them are skyrocketing for various reasons. We no longer pay for electricity. And in the winters, I burn. I split wood all summer so that I can burn in the winter. And I think, the ability to do everything we can to invest in both using less energy as the costs go up and potentially looking at alternative sources, because, the cost of a gallon of gas doesn't really go down. The cost of natural gas doesn't go down over the long term. And for the long-term benefits to the community, I think taking a look at all alternative energy sources for our buildings would be a great benefit.
Thank you. Amy?
Sustainability. What is sustainability? What does that mean? Interest rates are going up. They're going to continue. Inflation is going up. It will continue to. We do need more business in town. But businesses, people need places to live. Well, that's fine, but there's a lot of NIMBY in town. We all know that. It's a lot of protected area. You're not going to build in my neighborhood. You're not going to put up apartment building in my neighborhood. And they bring children and they're renters. And well, that's not sustainable, is it? So what do we do there? We have to. I spoke with Ken about the dump, the PFAS, and he explained that there are grants. Well, there's a freeze on those grants. Are they ever going to come through? What are we going to do about the PFAS? We have to address that. So sustainability has a meaning, but when so much is out of your control, you can only do what you can do. I don't know. Business would be great, but they have no place to live. The dump is just going to get worse. We have to fix it. But we can't drive on roads that are all broken up. There go our cars. So what is sustainable? I think we can only do the very best that we can do at the moment. Yep, let's change infrastructure. That costs money. That's investment. So again, we take out more loans that get paid off in the future, which go up as the interest rates go up. We can only do what we can do. Is it sustainable? It's never sustainable. It never was in the past. We remember because we were children, we were young, we had no idea. But we can only do what we can do today and hope that we can stop things because it's pushing down. What the governor say? The towns have to do more. With what? Yeah. We don't have anything. So it's just, we have to do the best we can do. Oh, thank you. We all have good intentions. We all love our town. But sustainable it's esoteric. It's not solid. That's me. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Fine. Eric, I promised you the closing word if you want it. And we'll see how wise you are now.
Oh, I'm gonna see the red sign here, I'm sure. Yeah, I just ran for budget committee because I saw a thing saying we need people to run, so I decided I could hopefully put my education and experience to good use. And it looks like we got plenty of people to choose from here, so.
Children of librarians and
Yeah, so. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out. No, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I can tell you, I'm objected to the format that Hopkinton Rotary has used here for years. Because it does one of two things. One of them being what you have done or Rotary has done tonight. You develop the questions and you ask them. You don't necessarily know whether or not those are the questions or the areas that everybody in the room is interested in. The other format was.
I'm going to interrupt you. I think we well publicized that people could submit their questions online through Saturday. I do agree that the moderator does get to choose because of time limitations, what falls to the bottom. The question I chose not to answer anybody was about Free State, because I don't believe it has an immediate impact on the town budget. So I appreciate your concerns, and like all the candidates, we would be happy to listen to them for next year, but I don't think it's fair to allow you to ask one question when there's not time for other people to ask theirs. Yes, we hear, we're a large group and we get a lot of feedback.
We have to go Rotarian to give feedback.
That's pretty much what it's been, but we publicized our email address. Well, come to breakfast. We'd be happy to have you to breakfast. Seriously, we publicized our emails, so it is
Hop Rotary flags.
Hop Rotary
The
Flags
flyer.
at Gmail.
I do have your flag.
Thank you. So again, Neil, what happens next? This is going to get posted?
Yes, so it went live on the town's YouTube site, so you'll be able to watch it immediately. And then there'll also be a link on the town meeting page to the forum.
Good.
Gail, can I plug myself?
Can you plug yourself?
Sure, my email address.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've heard, yeah.
Okay. If anyone wants to reach out to me, it's chrisgross00@gmail.
Good plug. Good. And you joined Facebook. There are two Hopkinton Facebook.
It's temporary.
So again, thank you all for sticking your head out of the holes and running for office. Thank you to all of you for coming and for your attention, and to all the folks who submitted questions and are listening online. Greatly appreciate it.